Uh, what more? We could assert some fields, but for now we actually don't know what the server will return. Most probably it will return the same model, the same data model, but we're not sure. So what we will try to do is just build our test case like it's now, try to run it and see the results, and then there we'll see what actually the server returns us. All right. We can test it out if you want. Just like let's run it and see what happens, and then build on what we have. Right. So let's proceed to our run commands. So automation run. Let's type automation run -h. All right, and we see that available commands are case, load, and set. So we need the case subcommand. Again, let's type -h. And we have the test case name to be set right there with some flags. So in the wiki, if we go back to the get started page, okay, this again explains all the fields of the test case, the test set, and so on. So it talks about starting test engine worker. So what it is. So in automation, we have a notion of let's say test agents, test engine workers that will do the request sending. So on its on CLI client's behalf. So you can have it launched automatically from the CLI client. So basically it's from the same place where the CLI is. Or you can have it, for example, I can have it on Eugene's Mac there running, and I can launch the test and it will run on his machine. Or I can have it on some build machine and I can launch the test from my machine, from my CLI client, and it will launch there. I can have multiple workers if I have a load test, and I can distribute the load through multiple machines. So that's the concept of why we're having these test engine workers. But for this use of ease, we have the auto worker. So you don't have to actually download the binary, deploy it somewhere, and so on. So you just use the -a flag on the run command, and that's it. So I'll skip the worker section right there. Oh, one more thing: if you don't use the auto flag and you still want to start the worker from the CLI, you can use the automation worker command. You can start the worker by just typing start and see the status of it. And what you also can see is the list of workers on your project. So if you share the project, which you also can do, you can share workers with your team, and then again your team member can use the ready worker for the test. So for the test execution, right? So we, as I showed you in the Visual Studio Code terminal, we'll be using the run command, and there's this deploy command which I told you before. So this deploy command is basically back up your tests. So the default use behavior would be I just have my Git repo. I'll commit all my files, add my files to that repo, and just have multiple branches of those test files. I can add those test files to my code files, and basically that is what we will be doing tomorrow. So we will have a Git repo. We have our inner code TDL box repo. So we will push all of our test files there. And for CI purposes, when we configure the CI job, we'll just pull the data from there and run our latest tests from there. So for that, we won't be needing the deploy command. So with deploy command, we, as I said, back up all our test asset files to the server, to the cloud. And if we run the command without the local option, it will grab the cloud test assets and run from the cloud. So if it's the option if you don't use Git, if you don't want to use Git and just use the stable version, test version from the cloud, like stable test files from the cloud and run those. So we will be using local flag to not use the deploy command, and also the auto, just to automatically start the worker, to not manage the workers for now. So run case. So who can tell me what I need to type here?
Case name.
Yes, exactly. So what case name I should type? Yes, thank you. Call resource CRUD. And let's add the local and the auto option. So you can have the long version with minus minus or dash dash, or you can have the short version. In short version, you can add them all together, right? So minus L, A, E, if you need to add your environment name, but staging is the default one, so we don't need to add that. All right, so by submitting this command, it will launch the automatic worker. If you don't have the worker, it will download it for you, and then it will have these local test assets synced to the test execution master, which will then push the job to the worker right here. All right. And you'll see what will happen. It will ask for worker access token. So it asks me for worker access token. I provide it. So like I said, it will download the latest worker. Then it launches the worker. It checks that it's connected to our automation test engine service. And if it is, it then receives the job, then executes the job. Of course, it does all of that real quick. So here you go, and you have the link for the HTML report, the local link, the path to the file, or you can see the reports in the directory reports right there. So if you run the case, it will be under directory cases. So the prefix is fail, so we know it's failed. Let's just copy this path and go to the Chrome, for example. Almost. And there we go. So call resource CRUD case, create call. We get 401 unauthorized instead of 201, which is our only assertion. We can see the request data we're sending. So again, we didn't set any variables, which is okay. For now, Xclient project header and Xclient token header are with default entries. And of course, our test API, which is secured, is saying flip off.